Welcome to the Time Bubble Podcast, the only podcast where the guests get to travel in time. I'm your host, Jason Ayres, and I'm delighted this week to be joined by a very old friend of mine, Laura-Jayne Brown. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you. It's been great to catch up as well before we came on, because we haven't spoken in an appalling time scale, actually. I was thinking that earlier. Like we just said, we haven't actually spoken to each other in, 3 years?
Yes, last time I saw you was at your birthday party 3 years ago.
Which
But of
I
course,
have no memory of.
yeah, I mean, obviously we had the lockdowns and all of that, which has sort of put a lot of the socialising on hold. But no, it's great to speak to you again. I guess I should tell people a bit about you. So you are a singer and also an artist. Tell us a bit about your singing.
Well, so when I was younger, a teenager, I used to work with Nicky James, who some people may know in the music world. He's no longer with us, sadly. I was about 13 and I recorded a single. And then hormones kicked in and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore, and came back to it. Obviously did karaoke, as you know, because we spent many a week singing in the pub. And then I went back into professional singing. But it would have been the end of 2019 when I released a single with a friend called Jay, who I don't know if you know Jay, actually.
Yeah.
Jay Taylor, as he's known, his stage name. So we did that, and that was released at the beginning of 2020. And I started booking my own gigs, and then obviously COVID hit. So I'm on my second comeback now. I'm going to be doing vocals, backing vocals for a band called The Food, who are a Foo Fighters tribute band. Definitely check them out. You can find them on Facebook. And also a few projects going on with other friends who sing and play instruments and things. So it's a case of watch this space at the moment, because I can't let too much out.
Yeah. So loads going on. We come a long way since those karaoke nights you talked about. But I think it was probably through karaoke that I first met you, and I'm guessing 12 to 15 years ago, approximately, I would say.
Was before your eldest started school, wasn't it? Because we met at karaoke and then recognised each other in the cloakroom.
So it was at least 11 years ago. But I do recall your wonderful singing. There's certain songs that stick in my head. You used to sing that song by Fairground Attraction. You remember?
Yeah.
Not
Find My Love.
Find My Love. Yes, because everybody knows Perfect, because that was their big hit. But Find My Love was their only other hit, actually, and it was my favourite. So
I remember you being quite shocked that I would know it. I remember you saying, you can't possibly be old enough to know that. No, it's my mum.
Well, because you are a good few years younger than me, and I was only a teenager when Fairground Attraction were around. So and that was 1988, which was the year I was 18. So it's a year I remember fondly, as I think your musical memories are related to your age very much, aren't they?
Absolutely. I would have been 4 then, because I was born in 84. So I'd have been 4 when that was released. So my memories of songs like that, my mum listening to them on LPs and things. So and believe it or not, still know those songs better than I know anything that comes out now or anything I'm supposed to learn now. Those ones all stick in my head. And I also did Transvision Vamp as well, didn't I?
Yes, that's right.
We have a mutual love for a certain
Wendy James. Wendy James. Well, don't get me started on that one. Okay, great. We'll move on with the podcast. I know you've been listening to a few episodes and been enjoying them. As you know, I ask you, first of all, about 3 times in your life that you'd like to go back to. So if you could go back to a particular day, where would you go?
I would go back to the day, and I'm struggling on how to word this, when I met my daughter. Now, the reason I struggle with the wording for that is because I am not biologically her mother. So I was a young 19-year-old, and my partner's ex was expecting a baby, and for reasons that we won't discuss, she was unable to look after said baby. So we had to do all the court proceedings and stuff to get residency of this baby. Like I say, I was 19. So, and she's now 19. My daughter is now 19. So put into perspective of, could she do those things? And I just feel like I would go back to that time. So not specifically a day, but that period of time where I could embrace those feelings and emotions better, because obviously I was so young. that my understanding was so different than what it would be now. And obviously, being the mother of a 19-year-old now, I can see why my parents would have worried and things like that. I don't know if I'd like to go back and be myself in that situation again, or be an onlooker.
Yeah.
Just to absorb those feelings more than anything. Because, and I'm sure I know it's the same with all types of parenting, because I have other children. You do miss the younger days. And just a snippet of back then would be nice. It puts things into perspective as well when you step back and remember how much they needed you back then and things like that. She was just a tiny baby and she had no idea what was going on. So, and now she's a 19-year-old woman. So,
it's a lot to deal with at a young age. You see, I didn't become a parent till I was 37. And even then, I didn't feel like I was really mature enough for it. And I just try to put myself in your shoes and think, what would it have been like to have been a parent at 19? And I just can't picture it, quite honestly. I was just a boy.
I had friends who were parents at like 17, 18, because when I moved to Bicester, I didn't know anybody. And it was about 6 months before she came to live with us. So there was a 6 months where I didn't really make any friends because I was just working all the time. And then when she came to me, the health visitor was like, oh, you need to go to these mother and baby groups. So she put me into this young mum's baby group. And I realized that I didn't quite fit in. Our situation didn't fit in, and they did this weekly, what's happened this week. And it was the moment I said, oh, we got full residency of Zara. And everyone just looked at me like I was completely crazy. And that was the day that everyone found out that I wasn't biologically Zara's mum.
Yeah.
So it did change things. And I did find, obviously it was young mums. Again, we were all naive back then, and I did find that my friendships changed very quickly. People couldn't, maybe felt like they couldn't relate to me very much, because I'd not done the birth or the pregnancy that they'd done, or being left as single mum and things like I hadn't gone through any of that. So I do remember, and it was a massive deal. And my family, some of my family weren't so supportive. And looking back, I can almost understand why now, but at the time it just made me more determined. So it was a massive thing to go through at any age, let alone 19. So
and your family swiftly grew because by the time our kids, because I'm thinking if I got this right, your fourth and fifth child were in the same year at school as my two.
I believe so. How old's your youngest?
12. So you've got Libby.
No, so that would have been third and fifth.
Yeah,
so
third and fifth. There was another one in between. I remember meeting you in the playground and thinking, wow, how do you do it? You got these 5 kids. I remember you had this great big people carrier that you used to ferry them around.
Vans and all sorts, haven't I?
Yeah.
Do you remember how I used to make them walk 2 by 2 so that I didn't lose anybody?
Yeah, and we were talking. Funny, I recorded an episode yesterday. We were talking about a similar sort of thing and how wonderful that playground community was when the kids were little. How used to, if you were busy with the kids all day as we were, it was really nice to go down at pickup time and have a good chat with everybody.
We all started getting there a bit earlier. It was just getting earlier and earlier every week, wasn't it? And we just have our little hangout before the kids came out.
Yeah, I used to love it down at the first school. You remember the one by the church? It was a really lovely old-fashioned building, and of course, but they moved elsewhere.
So things changed then.
They changed.
Things changed. I haven't got any children at that school anymore.
No.
My youngest doesn't go to that school, so enough said about that place. I think they like me as much as I like them. Let's just put it that way.
do you remember when we got told off by the headmaster for saying negative things on Facebook about the school? Got called into the office. You were one of them, weren't you? I was.
It became an ongoing joke even after you left with as the rebel wives, as we called ourselves as a group. And it was an ongoing joke, especially with my friend Yvonne, on who could get in the newsletter this week. We got to the end when they all left, when all the children were hitting you. We were like, we've literally got weeks left. We need to get in the newsletter. Talk about being a good example to your children.
No, probably not. I mean, my boys know that I'm a bit of a rebel, and I always have been. I tend to surround myself with people who are other rebels too, because we're the more.
join was it the parent group thing? You wanted me to leave it. And I was like, really? Please.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, we'll move on. Have you got a second day?
So the second one would be when I left home. I left home at a very, very young age. I was 15. I don't regret leaving home. My family was dysfunctional, let's say. And it's more a case of how I left home. I regret how I did it because, again, at 15, hormones are flying. You just want to. I was very much my flight or fight response was out there, and it's my family. I'm not going to fight my way out of a situation, so it was flight. And my younger brothers and sisters, I'm one of seven. My mum had 7 children, and I'm the middle one. And when I left home, I was one of the older ones. So I remember their faces when I left and things like that. And I'm very maternal with my younger sisters and brother. And I feel like I played a part in abandoning them. To me, like we supported each other growing up. So to be the one that left, I
Yeah,
think I'll always regret that I left without really saying anything. And I just remember seeing them at the door, and I was
yeah,
heartbreaking. I remember my older brother saying out the window, "Is it my fault?" And I was like, "No, it's not your fault." And that will stick with me forever. That was 20 years ago, and
yeah,
that feeling hasn't changed. That feeling will never change. Even though we still support each other now as adults, it doesn't change the fact that that day happened, and it was on me on how it happened. So I would go back to that and leave more calmly, I
yeah.
think.
So where did you go at such a tender age?
So my older sister picked me up originally. I'd literally just finished my GCSEs, or I was waiting for my GCSE results at the time,
Yeah.
because I'm a summer baby, so I left school at 15. And then I fibbed about my age and got a job, which had a live-in deal. We had like a room in a staff room thing where we could stay, and I did that for a couple of months. And then the next year or so, I kind of just sofa surfed wherever I could go, whether it was friends or family. Yeah, so I was out and I lived in a car for a while as well. So yeah, there's some other stories like behind there that maybe I won't repeat just yet until my kids are older. But yeah, I made some very risky decisions, at such a young age. And again, I've got a daughter that's that age now, and she's very outspoken and much like me, and does her own thing. And I just don't upset her, because if she leaves, she'll be determined and I'll never get her back, sort of thing. But no, she's, again, seeing it in the perspective of that age, I'd be beside myself if my children did what I did.
Yeah.
Not that I was never a naughty person, like I wasn't off doing drugs and stuff like this. I was just I just needed such an independence. And I've always been like that. As I'm sure you've picked up on in the years that we've known each other. I'm a very determined, independent person. So um,
Yeah.
that has been with me since I was very small. So
And I think at that age as well, we have this feeling of immortality in us. We're doing something that we wouldn't advise our own children to do, but we're so sure of ourselves. And, to go and do these things, you don't really think about the dangers or the long-term implications. You're just, I want to do this. I've said this before, when you're 15, 16, you can't imagine what it's really like to be an adult or older. You never
no,
can
but you
imagine.
think you do. You think you
you,
know
you do. Yeah,
it.
you do. You think you know
um,
it all, and then you do it. Because, I mean, my older son, Ollie, who you've probably not seen since he was little, he has got the exact single-mindedness that I have and that you had, and he is very forthright in his opinions. At times, it causes arguments and it irritates the hell out of me, but I also respect and love the fact that he is his own person and he will never be one of these people that follows the herd.
yeah, I like to think the same with my children. Actually, they're
Yeah,
all so different, but they're all so similar in that sense.
yeah,
But I think that comes into how you raise them, though, because if you embrace who they are, not who you want them to be,
yeah,
then you can mold them in certain senses. I mean, my kids do know some of my past, and I think it's important that they know why I am sometimes hard work and things like that. It's
yeah,
that they now need to know that before I was a mum, that there was a life, and
yeah,
quite. quite a bumpy, traumatic one. I don't obviously keep it as child safe as possible when I talk about it. Depending on their age, they know certain things that the others don't. But yeah, I just think back then I was naive. So I wouldn't have changed anything I did do, just how I did them. If that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I come back to.
The benefit of hindsight, as they say.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Let's move on again then, and we'll have a third day that you'd like to go back to.
Oh, it's right. No one can see me apart from you, but this
Yeah.
thought always it just puts a massive smile on my face. So this is a really recent one that I'd like to go back to. It was in fact only in the beginning of July. So I'm a massive, massive fan of Guns N' Roses. Always have been. Never ever thought I'd get to see them, but my partner Dan, he bought me tickets before lockdown for my birthday present to see them. So another 2 extra years of waiting. We eventually get there, and I was so overwhelmed by being in London, by knowing that I was going to see them. Just the whole thing was just so overwhelming for me that I feel like I didn't absorb most of it. And to make matters worse, but better at the same time, we were in the Gold Circle, which meant I was literally like 8 feet away from
Wow.
Axel and Slash, and I just remember being so overwhelmed that even the next day it didn't feel like I'd been there. So
Yeah.
I'd like to go and do that again. But then who wouldn't want to go back to their favorite concert of all time again?
Yeah. I mean, this
Yeah,
is when it's such a massive event, like you say, it is overwhelming.
it really was. It's a
And
20 plus year dream of mine to just see
yeah,
them. I was expecting to see them like at such a distance that are about three centimeters tall, but I was right up close. Like, and I was just like, oh, sorry. So I mean, I didn't know that until we were there.
yeah.
So it was
No,
kind of
well, that is, yeah, because I've been to big gigs where Wembley and places, but you're so far away. It's like being at, well, some of them were like football grounds and things like that. So it's like
yeah. This
you're
is
at the
it
other end
first.
of
Yeah.
you're at the other end of the pitch trying to see what's going on.
I mean, the whole day was overwhelming. Anyway, I'm not great in places like London. I'm getting better, but I'm a country girl, really. I was born in a village, so I now live in Bicester, which is a town, but it's still not busy here. So even going to London can be overwhelming for me. So we went to London, and it hadn't realised that it was also London Pride. And we'd actually gone into the city centre to go and see if my sister happened to be staying there as well. I haven't seen her for a couple of years because of COVID. And we were like, oh, we'll get together. And then when we got there, she's like, I can't find you. I can't get there. There's crowds everywhere. What the bloody hell's going on? And she went, oh, it's London Pride. And I somehow, in the midst of trying to get to my sister to see her for 5 minutes before the gig, managed to get completely caught up in London Pride. And so there was me and Dan. We must have been walking for miles and hours
Yeah,
just in the. And obviously, I'm only tiny. So what I've got is the people's shoulder blades and stuff. That's all I could see in this really, really busy crowd. So that had already tired me out. Because as I'm sure you know, I suffer with fatigue because I had a stroke a couple of years ago. So anything that's mentally overstimulating or physically can tire me out to the point that I sleep for hours. And so I was already exhausted. And then we were like, then they closed the tubes. And we were like, how the hell are we going to get to White Hart Lane to get to the gig? And I was like, please don't let me miss the gig. I've already missed out on seeing my sister. So it was the whole day was manic. And then just standing there and realizing I'm at the front of this
yeah,
gig and being like, wow, this is insane. It by any stretch, the most amazing experience of my life.
yeah.
So
So yeah, go back and do it again because, like I say, it's so hard to take it all in one go. One of the things that I find quite inexplicable that I see people doing these days, you see it at concerts and sports events, that you see them all standing with their phone up in there, that they're more interested in filming the moment than living the moment. And I see them with thing, they'd say, well, they're doing this because they want to post it somewhere. And I'm thinking, well, you don't need to do that. Just put that away and get properly absorbed into what you're doing.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
even go back to like when the kids' school plays and stuff. People sit there watching it through their phone. I'm like, you may as well just be watching a live stream.
Yeah.
If I do want to record something, I tend to like sort of hold it in a place where I can see what I need to see on the screen, press
Yeah.
record, but I still watch with my eyes away from the phone. I mean, at Guns N' Roses, fate took that into its own hands because my battery ran out just as we were going into the
Yeah.
stadium. And I was like, no. And then I thought, no, hang on a minute. This is happened for a reason. So we were
Yeah.
sharing Danny's phone to take pictures and videos. And just like occasionally we'd only do it at certain times, like if they were in front of us or certain songs and stuff like that. But we weren't recording them.
Yeah.
We were enjoying the moment and recording ourselves enjoying the moment. So I think we, as a couple, we took a slightly different take on that.
Yeah. How long did they play for?
Oh, blimey, a good couple of hours, but they were
Yeah.
2 hours late. But I didn't care
Yeah.
because I was still going to see them. I was like, as long as they turn up, I don't care. I could stand there for 5 hours waiting.
Yeah, you do get your money's worth with rock bands generally.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The set was brilliant as well, so I couldn't have asked for better, really. Just want to redo it.
Well,
I'd have put all my clothes on as well because it rained. So.
you'll have to go again next time they tour in Britain.
Fingers crossed that they do.
Yeah.
I've got some friends from back home. There were so many people there that I knew, but obviously it's the vast amount of people. You don't see people, even though you're there. And I've seen some of them since, and we've said like next time they tour, if they tour, we're all going together as a group, and we're going to do the Golden Circle. We're going to do it properly. So yeah, it's already in the plans. I'm not missing out on that again. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
Of course, with your own singing, you might be playing to a crowd like that yourself one day.
maybe not to that size. Oh, blimey.
It's a lot. And I'll be saying, I remember when she used to do karaoke at the White Hart. Look how far she's come.
We putting the youngest in a playpen on the corner of on the stage, saying like, "I just didn't get the childcare." Yeah. No, she doesn't let me sing. She doesn't. She's severely autistic, and she doesn't like the sound of me singing.
Yeah.
So it can make it really quite difficult to do anything. Really, can't even practice at home. She goes, "Mummy, please stop." I'm like, "It's not that bad."
Okay, well, we'll move on now. The next question that I normally ask is, if you could be someone else for a day, who would you like to be?
Well, originally, I came up with the first thing that came to my head was Tom Hardy's wife, and then I thought maybe that would take a very different detour of a conversation.
Yeah,
maybe not suitable.
I see where you're going with that.
No, Billy Connolly. I grew up with him on the telly, and watching his stand up and things like that. And then obviously, as my children were growing up, he went into acting and things like that. And he's always intrigued me. Always intrigued me. Really comforting about him. Everyone knows him, and his voice is so recognizable and things like that. But I want to say I read his autobiography, and I haven't, because since my stroke, I struggle to read written word. So I listened to the Audible, and it was read by him. So it was even more just fascinating. And it was literally his life story, from some of the really hard things he went through as a child to some of the crazy events that happened as he was a young adult, getting into the business that he's in and how he ended up doing it and things like that. And it's called Windswept and Interesting. And there's literally no better way to describe him. That is Billy. And
the hair, it brings the word windswept to mind, doesn't it? I haven't read that autobiography, but I did read the one that his wife wrote about him, just called Billy. And I don't know how long ago that was, maybe as much as 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think I read that when Dara was a baby. So yeah. That's Pamela Stevens, isn't it?
That's it. Yeah, because she was in Not the 9 O'Clock News, which was another big comedy. She was a star herself in the 80s. But yeah, Billy Connolly, it's like he's always been around. You said that throughout your life, but mine as well. He was on the TV in the 70s and the 80s, and he's got that way of telling a story or an anecdote. Whatever he's going to say, you're going to laugh. He's just
even if he gets it wrong, it's still funny.
He has that rare gift that many comedians don't have, and fascinating. So if you were going to be him, would you be him sort of past or present? What era of Billy Connolly would you?
I would like to step into the shoes of Billy Connolly when he was in his early adult years, when he was discovering how windswept and interesting he really was and embracing it. Because I think a lot of people, I admire him for that. There's a lot of people, myself included, where we're almost misfits in society. And it doesn't need to be that way. It doesn't need to be that way. And people like Billy Connolly have made it himself famous because of it. He a walking, talking example of why it's okay to be different. So I think the stages when he started embracing that side of himself, I would like to have seen him then, because I know what he's like now. I've seen,
Yeah.
I've read all the books. I'd like to go back to that just as he was coming into the entertainment industry and embracing the stripy trousers and, odd coloured
Yeah.
shoes and things like that. So
Because he overcame a lot of adversity. What I remember from the book was a troubled childhood with a lot of problems.
very
I
much
can't
so.
remember all the details, but
He was abused by his father.
yeah,
His mother left, and yeah, many, many, many sad times
yeah.
in his first part of his life. So,
But
um,
you do often see that in people who've become successful in entertainment because they almost see it as an escape. They become a performer to try and put all that behind them. And
yeah,
if you look at, I mean, countless examples of comedians, people that do have these dark backstories.
yeah, and it's a common fact, isn't it? That many people that have been through trauma in the early years of their life will use comedy to almost come as therapy in a
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, to alleviate the pain.
Yeah, and like
Yeah,
I say, I mean, I've had a troubled childhood, and I do find that me and my brothers and sisters, we are very sound like I'm blowing my own trumpet, but we're very comical people. We
yeah,
do stand out, all of us do, and you can tell that we're brothers and sisters not necessarily by the way that we look, but by the way that we act, and we all make jokes out of our trauma. We all do.
yeah,
And it's interesting when all of us are in the same room. And so I think maybe on that level I relate to Billy in that sense. And maybe it's a level of like jealousy, maybe because he made something so amazing out of it. He changed it.
yeah,
He owned it and changed it, and now he's living the life that anyone would really dream of. Obviously, apart from the fact that he's not very well, but his life has always been amazing. It's always
yes,
been interesting in that sense. And I think that still too many people have these traumatic backgrounds, and as my older brother said, you have to let it refine you, not define you. And Billy is one of the people that is walking proof that you can do that. So
yeah. And you can do it at any age. I mean, he found success relatively early on. But, thinking of the age you are now, you're doing your singing, what I'm doing now, you can find success in your 40s, 50s, or later in life. I mean, the thing I always say to anybody who's creative, never give up, because success doesn't happen overnight for everybody. If you've got the talent and you just keep plugging away, it can happen for you.
it's with my COVID actually really helped me with that. I'm stuck in the house with my kids and thinking, I'm an active person, so I'm like, what am I going to do with my
Yeah,
time? And I happened to just pick up my paintbrushes and ordered a canvas, and I started painting again. And I haven't painted since I was at school.
yeah,
So again, another dream that I sort of let go away. And now I'm painting portraits, from photographs and stuff. And my favorite one to do at the moment, I've done Slash, but I've recently painted Freddie Mercury twice. I don't like to repeat my work, but I've done two portraits the same of him for my partner and his mum, and I was so pleased with it. And I didn't even know I could do that.
yeah,
I didn't know I could paint. I've never attempted it in my life. I just thought, oh, I'm going to paint Slash, and it happened. I was like, oh, wow,
yeah,
and I was what 36 when I started painting again. And
exactly.
even my kids were like, Mum, you can paint. Yes, I can.
Yeah,
So yeah, absolutely. Age is not a limit when it comes to doing what you want to do.
no, not at all. And I think I become more motivated with every passing year because I know I haven't got as much time left as I had 20, 30 years ago, and I need to start making the most of it.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I don't want to waste days or evenings sitting around watching television. I want to be getting out there, meeting people, doing creative things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I'm if as long as I've got the childcare, I'm happy to go to
Yeah,
things and do things. And you might pick up on something you didn't know about yourself or meet new friends. It that never stops. Those
no,
opportunities are there forever. there's people in their 80s going out for lunches or going out to events on their own and meeting with friends and things. So yeah, I think certainly when it comes to doing what you want to do, I don't think that age should put a stopper to that.
Definitely not. Okay, we've got one more question to go, and that is, if you could go anywhere in space or time, where would you go?
I really struggled with this one because I'm a believer in past lives. So I believe anywhere I should have been in the past, I've already been there.
Okay.
So I really struggled with this one. And then I thought, I was visualizing going back home to Wiltshire, and I was thinking of Stonehenge. And I thought, there's very, very, very few facts known about Stonehenge, like actually known.
It's theories, isn't it, really, rather than facts?
Theoretical when it comes to Stonehenge. Although, they've confirmed that the
blue stones,
the Spartan stones, I believe, came from Marlborough Downs, and I went to school in Marlborough, so I was like, that does make sense, but they still can't actually prove it, right? So I would like to go back to not necessarily the first stages of Stonehenge, but maybe the later stages of the creation of Stonehenge, and actually know. Because also, so I follow a pagan path, so as anyone knows, it's a very special place to us during solstice seasons, times and things like that. And it does make sense to us that it would be connected to the winter solstice or the summer solstice. But there's no fact.
Yeah.
So,
and it was built over a long period of time, so you'd have to visit a few different eras, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the original creation was what, over 5,000 years ago. Again, it's all theoretical, right? So, and then I think the second stage was believed to have happened around 3,500 years ago, but no one knows. And I would like to be able to sort of go, oh, that's who put that there. That's where that came from. That's why it's there.
Well, there are so many theories, and the fact that the stones align so perfectly to these dates in the calendar, it almost suggests a higher technology. It's very easy to think in our modern society with all the technology that people thousands of years ago were just sort of primitive cave dwellers going around waving clubs and saying ugh. But they obviously but they obviously had more about them than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you look back at for me, if you look back on like Norse pagans, or let's just go with pagans actually, because it covers quite a lot of things. They believed in seers. They believed in following the phases of the moon and things like that. Now, someone must have worked that out back then. And when you think that, like, your average Joe would just get that information off the internet, they don't understand why.
Yeah.
So before all of this stuff was available to us, before we had communities that we could talk to other people across the world and things like that, these people knew this stuff already. How? There must be something in it. We run our clocks on the time of day is based on the sun setting and things like that. We have daylight saving hours in the UK and things like that. That's all been worked out long before any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And how many days there are in a year and things like that. That's been worked out, like you say, in these times when we didn't have modern technology, we didn't have this. So the understanding level must have been there.
Yeah. Well, they would have been outside a lot more. They would have been able to, there wouldn't be the light pollution. They could look up at the night sky and look at where things were every night and see how the positions, I mean, that's how they figured out what the planets were, because they didn't stay in the same place, whereas the stars did.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at that every night, then you are going to work those things out. I mean, how often do people look at the stars now? They're more interested in.
This is it. We recently stayed in the New Forest for a week. And like I say, I live in Bicester and my partner lives in a city as well. So I was like, look at the stars. It reminded me of being back home. I was like, look how many you can see.
Yeah.
Because you can't see that. Like when you live somewhere that's overbuilt, the light from the houses takes away the ability to see the stars in the sky. So, and I was like, imagine you did this every night. You can't do that here. I mean, I could, but I'd probably just be staring at the same two stars every night. So yeah, I'm amazed by anything like that. when it comes to history. It's not, for me, it's not necessarily like history of royal families or battles or anything like that. It's the how we've grown as humans,
that's exactly what I think. The social history and what people really did, what they talked about. So,
and originally, we all came from different places, but now we can talk each other's languages and things like that. And we can travel, and it amazes me. I was listening to a podcast, I can't remember which one it was. It was a psychology one, I believe. And they were talking about how we would have less fighting within our own countries if we went back to communal living. Like if down south they lived how they want to down south, and then in the city centres, if we lived in communities of interest rather than communities of area, we're forced to abide by all the same rules and stuff. And obviously down in the countryside, it's not the same as it would be up here. And they were just saying that we'd be happier as people if we lived in smaller communities with the support of other communities.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, brilliant. Okay, we're almost out of time. Quickly tell us where people can find your music and art.
Okay, so for music, I don't have a lot online at the moment, so it's probably best to follow my Facebook page, which is Elle-Jay, but it's ELLE.JAY.
Okay.
And then for my painting, I'm also on Instagram for that, which covers my painting and my singing. My painting is Brushwork by Elle-Jay, spelled the same way on Facebook. But like I say, we've got a lot of things in the pipeline, so look out on YouTube and Spotify soon. I have got a track on Spotify that I featured in. It's called Watch Over You, but that's under Jay Taylor featuring Elle-Jay. So I can be found fairly easily, and if not, I'm sure Jason can send you the information if you want to give me a follow. You can't find me.
I'll put the links in. So thank you ever so much for coming along today.
It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much.
And I will see you again soon.
Absolutely. Love to the family.
Yes, and yours. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.